He had dedicated 3 decades, 30 long years of his life, toiling under the sun, nurturing the vast lands of the El Mirador ranch. His name was Mr. Brad, a man whose hands were as calloused as the old leather of his boots, and whose loyalty was as steadfast as the ancient oaks bordering the property. The ranch had been his world, and its owner, Mr. Harrison, the man he had served with unwavering devotion. When the day of his retirement finally dawned, a day he had awaited with a mix of melancholy and anticipation, he expected a just reward, a fair acknowledgment for a lifetime of sweat and sacrifice. However, the landowner, Mr. Harrison, was a man whose heart was as barren as the land he was about to bestow. Known for his cold demeanor and insatiable greed, he saw Brad's retirement not as an occasion to show gratitude, but as an opportunity for a cruel jest. He summoned Brad to his opulent porch, a sneer playing on his lips. With a grand, mocking gesture, he announced Brad's compensation, a small, forgotten plot at the farthest edge of the ranch, a patch of earth so choked with rocks and stones that it was infamous throughout the region. "It's a place where not even weeds grow," Harrison declared, his laughter echoing across the manicured lawn, a harsh and grating sound that cut Brad deeper than any thorn. Humiliated, his spirit bruised by the callous disregard for his years of service, Brad felt a wave of despair wash over him. The dream of a peaceful retirement, of a small cottage with a blooming garden, crumbled into dust. Yet beneath the shame, a flicker of resilience remained. He looked at the deed thrust into his hand, a worthless piece of paper for a worthless piece of land. With a heavy heart, but a straight back, he accepted. At least, he thought, it was a place to call his own, a place to rest his weary bones, a place to die. As news of Harrison's generosity spread, the neighboring ranchers and farmhands couldn't help but chuckle at Brad's misfortune. They saw him pass by, his shoulders slumped, carrying his few possessions toward the rocky wasteland. They whispered and pointed, some with pity, most with scorn. "Poor old Brad," they'd say, traded his life for a pile of rocks. But Brad paid them no mind. His focus was singular. He arrived at his new home, a desolate canvas of gray and brown, and surveyed the challenge before him. He did not see an end. He saw a beginning. He took up his worn pickaxe and his trusted shovel, tools that had been extensions of his arms for 30 years, and began the arduous task of clearing the land. Day after day, from sunrise to sunset, the solitary sound of metal striking stone echoed through the quiet landscape. His neighbors would occasionally watch from a distance, shaking their heads at what they perceived as a futile, desperate act of a broken old man. But Brad was not broken. With every swing of the pickaxe, he chipped away not just at the rocks, but at the bitterness that had tried to take root in his heart. He was a man of faith, and he prayed as he worked, asking for strength, for perseverance. He believed that even in the most barren of places, a purpose could be found. It was on one sweltering afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly, that his labor took an unexpected turn. He swung his pickaxe with a familiar, rhythmic motion, aiming for a particularly large, deeply embedded boulder. But instead of the usual dull thud and spray of rock chips, the tool struck something with a sharp, metallic clang that vibrated up his arms. The sound was different, unusual, carrying a strange resonance that made him pause. Curiosity piqued, he knelt down and began to clear the dust and smaller stones away from the point of impact. His weathered fingers traced the surface of what his pickaxe had hit. It wasn't just another rock. It was something else entirely. What Brad unearthed that day would not only leave the entire town speechless, but would also make the wealthy and greedy landowner, Mr. Harrison, regret his cruel decision for the rest of his miserable days. This is a powerful and inspiring story of how faith and perseverance can turn a curse into a blessing, a testament to how God prepares a table in the desert for his faithful children, proving that true wealth is not measured in land or gold, but in the unshakable strength of the human spirit. For a man who had known nothing but the earth, the feel of this unusual rock was baffling. It was heavy, far heavier than any stone of its size ought to be. Its surface had a strange, dark luster, and where his pickaxe had struck it, a small gleaming gash revealed a bright, yellowish interior. Brad's heart began to pound in his chest. He had spent his life working the land, but he was no fool. He had heard tales from old-timers, stories of prospectors and hidden treasures, legends whispered around campfires. Could it be? He dismissed the thought as the fantasy of a tired old man. It was probably just iron pyrite, fool's gold, another cruel joke from fate. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of excitement. Using his shovel as a lever, he painstakingly worked to pry the strange object from the earth. It was larger than he anticipated, a dense, irregularly shaped nugget the size of a large potato. He wrapped it in a piece of burlap, and that evening took it to the one person in town he trusted, Old Man Hemlock, the town's retired jeweler and geologist. Hemlock, a man with eyes as sharp as the facets of a diamond, took one look at the heavy object, cleaned it, and placed it on his scale. He performed a few simple tests, his expression shifting from professional curiosity to wide-eyed astonishment. "Brad," he said, his voice a hushed whisper, "do you have any idea what this is? This isn't fool's gold. This is the real thing. And it's one of the purest, largest nuggets I've ever seen in my life." The old jeweler estimated its value to be a fortune, enough to buy the entire El Mirador ranch several times over. Brad stood there, stunned into silence. The rock-filled land, the symbol of his humiliation, had yielded a treasure beyond his wildest dreams. The cruel joke had turned into a divine blessing. The news spread through the town like wildfire. The same neighbors who had mocked him now looked at him with awe and envy. They saw him not as a pitiful old man, but as a figure of incredible fortune, and more importantly, of incredible resilience. The story reached the ears of Mr. Harrison, who at first dismissed it as a ridiculous rumor. But when the town's bank manager personally confirmed the deposit of a sum so vast, it staggered the imagination. Harrison's mockery turned to apoplectic rage. He realized the magnitude of his mistake. The worthless land he had given away in a fit of spite had contained a treasure that dwarfed his own considerable wealth. Consumed by greed, Harrison tried to reclaim the land. He hired lawyers, claiming the sale was invalid, that Brad had deceived him, but the deed was legally binding. The land and everything in it belonged to Brad. Harrison's attempts to bully and intimidate the old man failed. Brad, now a man of means, was no longer the subservient laborer. He stood firm, his quiet dignity a shield against Harrison's desperate tirades. The landowner's public humiliation was complete. His reputation was shattered, and he became a local cautionary tale, a man choked by his own greed, forever haunted by the fortune he had thrown away. But Brad was not a man to gloat. He did not use his newfound wealth for revenge. Instead, he embodied the grace he had always carried in his heart. His first act was to build a small, comfortable home on his plot of land, right next to the hole where he had found his fortune. He then established a foundation to support retired farm workers, ensuring that no other loyal laborer would face the same humiliation he had endured. He built a new community center and helped fund the local church, his generosity touching every corner of the town that had once scorned him. He had been given a table in the desert, and now he was inviting everyone to the feast. Mr. Brad's story became a legend, a powerful reminder that destiny is not determined by the cruelty of others, but by one's own faith and a refusal to surrender. The driest, rockiest plot of land became a symbol of hope, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are found where we least expect them, often hidden beneath a surface of hardship and trial. And the wealthy landowner, Mr. Harrison, lived out his days watching the man he had mocked flourish, a constant, agonizing reminder of the day his greed had made him the poorest man in town. If you enjoyed this beautiful story and reflection, don't forget to share it with anyone you think might find it useful. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos and new reflections for your life. See you in the next video. See you soon.